Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, there's one thing that unites all of us in the room this evening, and that is respect and admiration for the work of Sir Arthur Watts. The British Institute of International and Comparative Law feels honoured by the presence of so many distinguished people in the audience this evening. The President of the International Court of Justice, Judge Greenwood, the Deputy President of the Supreme Court, and several of his colleagues, justices on that court, the High Commissioner of Singapore, the Japanese Ambassador, other senior members of the judiciary, both national and international. The Attorney General had, as you will have gathered from Dame Rosalind Higgins, intended to be here this evening, but is prevented from doing so by parliamentary duties. But he has sent a message, which I can read out. I send my good wishes and those of the Foreign Secretary for the launch of the Sir Arthur Watts Fellowship, and our apologies that parliamentary business prevents either of us from attending in person. Sir Arthur was highly regarded, both within the British government and outside, for his practical and principled approach to international law. The perpetuation of his work through the British Institute of International and Comparative Law is thus most appropriate and has the government's warm support. Dominic Grieve. But if I may, with all the respect that's due to our most distinguished guests, say there is another category of people present, those of us who had the good fortune not only of admiring Arthur Watts and his work as a lawyer, but of knowing him personally and having the affection that inevitably came from that. We are exceptionally pleased to have Lady Watts with us this evening, Cecilia Gillette. We regret only that Dr. Catherine Watts, who dearly wanted to come this evening, is prevented for reasons wholly beyond her control from joining us, but I can assure you, and I can assure you, Iris, that she will get a full report from me.
And from me too.
The idea of founding a fellowship in Arthur Watts's memory, which is the reason we're here tonight. I'll begin what I have to say on the subject by reading what appears in Arthur Watts's entry in the Dictionary of National Biography, which we now have to call the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography. It's as follows. Watts was thus part of a long line of eminent practitioner scholars springing from the legal advisers to the Foreign Office. His particular contribution lay in the huge range of his reading and careful attention to detail, joined to clarity of expression and a view of law as a practical tool designed to be used. Although reserved in his private life, he generated immediate affection and respect in those with whom he had contact professionally, and it was that, together with a lack of showmanship and a patent sense of balance and of fairness, that lent innate authority to his advice and to his argument in court. When Arthur was taken from us at a stage at which he was in full flow as an international lawyer, the thought arose of founding a fellowship at the Institute in his memory. I'm not sure that I could even begin to identify who it was who was originally behind the thought. It seemed to emerge simultaneously from a number of people, different directions, all at the same time, and all with the same idea behind them. To build upon the qualities which appeared in that extract from the Dictionary of National Biography. The objectives being to continue Arthur's work, to focus, as he did, on the practical application of international law, and at the same time to do, as Judge Higgins has just explained, to ensure that international law remained permanently at the heart of the work of the British Institute of International and Comparative Law. And those were the forces, the motives that led to the creation of the appeal for the Arthur Watts Fellowship. The campaign has gone well, as you will have seen from the brochure on your seats. A great deal has been achieved, and it's one of the things that I want to do tonight, to use this as an occasion to express the Institute's sincere thanks to our many donors, some of whom have been governments, some of whom have been institutions, but many individuals who have contributed generously to the Arthur Watts appeal in response to the kind of qualities that I have mentioned earlier. I won't list the donors, but I must single out one in particular, and that is Alan Myers, AOQC of Melbourne in Australia, who has made a most handsome and generous personal donation, which has had a material effect in enabling the fellowship to get off the ground, and which has spawned in due course a collaborative relationship with the law school at the University of Melbourne, following hard on the heels of a collaborative arrangement with the Centre for International Law in Singapore, both of which collaborative arrangements are already showing signs of practical fruition, and we hope for a great deal more from them in future. While I'm giving thanks, I want to express a most particular word of thanks to the firm of Freshfields, Brookhouse, Derringer. Several of the Freshfields partners are in the audience tonight, and we welcome them too in a particular way, who have responded with great generosity and immediate willingness to our invitation that they might sponsor this event and provide suitable premises. That is the kind of support from the practicing profession, the very active practicing profession, which means a great deal to the Institute in the continuation of its work, and which lies behind the motives fueling the creation of the Arthur Watts Fellowship. So my grateful thanks on behalf of the Institute for that. All that remains for me to do is to introduce and pass the podium over to Jill Barrett. Jill Barrett is the first Sir Arthur Watts Senior Fellow in International Law at the British Institute. You can imagine the pleasure that was felt widely in the Institute when the advertisement for recruitment to the post ended up selecting a person who had herself worked closely with Arthur and who shares many of the legal interests which he did. Jill has been in post already for some time. This is not, so to speak, a retrospective leaking back into the beginning, but an opportunity to celebrate the fact that the Arthur Watts Fellowship is already in full flight and that much more will come of it. And at that point, I asked Jill Barrett if she would introduce the fellowship and her program.